It's 2024. Tyres have changed, vehicles have changed. After another decade of full drive experience, my advice has changed. The first and most important decision that every single full driver has to make are which tyres they need. You only really have two options because highway terrains just won't cut it. All-terrain versus mud terrain. That means you have a 50% chance to make the right choice. However, 50% chance you make the wrong choice and you're stuck for 40 to 60,000 Ks with the wrong tyre choice.
What?
That could drive you wild.
I can't hear you, I've got earmuffs on.
Most people think all-terrain are the best choice.
All-terrain.
And many people just fit mud terrains because they look cool.
Oh yeah.
And I wish it was that simple. Truth is, the playing field between these two tyres, these two options, is much closer than what people think.
Huh? Really?
To help you make the right choice, I'm going to explain this in a way that no one has ever done before. Over 2 decades of experience, I'm going to make this crystal clear. Terrain comparison, grip comparison, footprint comparison, crushing the myths of the mud tyres, difference between a real and a fake all-terrain tyre, and of course, all the pros and the cons. You will have a clear understanding on how to make the best choice for yourself. Fake all-terrains. What is a fakie? These are what I consider, in my opinion, from my experience of actually using those tyres as well, I consider those fake all-terrains. Glorified highway terrain. Most four-wheel drives out there are released with what I call fakies. How do you tell the difference? The sidewalls. If they're smooth like that, it might say all-terrain. I'll tell you what, it's not an all-terrain, in my opinion. This is a proper all-terrain. I know these are broad statements, but the gaps left unanswered, they will be filled as we go. It'll make sense, trust me. Terrain and grip comparison on sand. Immediately, most people will go towards the all-terrain, thinking that is the best choice. And it kind of makes sense. Many will argue the mud terrain tyre with its aggressive tread blocks and aggressive gaps in between it will just dig into the sand and cause the vehicle to get bogged. You're bogged, mate!
After all that.
And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. However, with my experience of driving on almost every single possible type of sand you could think of, with mud terrains, on sand, they are just as good so long you have the same tyre pressure as you would with the all-terrain. They're on par, they're just as good as each other. You don't really dig into sand with a mud terrain. If you're going to dig into sand, you're going to dig either way. At really low pressures, a mud terrain with a stiffer sidewall tends to stick to that rim a little bit better, but it's very minor. Both tyres are damn good on sand. Good options. In terms of sand recovery with recovery boards, an all-terrain and a mud terrain are kind of on par, but to be honest, it is easier to recover a vehicle with mud terrains, just because of those big tread blocks. They just grip onto it a bit easier. In terms of the highway terrain, they can actually be a little bit problematic sometimes trying to recover. The tyres are so smooth, it's hard for them to grip onto those lugs. Not often considered or thought about, sidewall strength. Really got to be careful. If you hit things hard and fast, that's when you damage the rim because you will compress the sidewall so much. Highway terrain, weak as piss. All terrain, brand dependent. However, this one is very strong. This on, say, stock Hilux with camping gear in it, I had to put them down to like 7 PSI. Before it had the highway terrains, 15 PSI was like having these new tyres 7 or 8 PSI because the sidewall was so much stronger. Highway terrain, there is no real structure in that sidewall. I reckon I could have gone down to about 6 or 5 PSI and still be able to drive without rolling those tyres off the bead. That's how strong the sidewall is on these razors. Mud terrain, the strongest of them all, also brand dependent, but most of the good brands out there, they are fairly strong. Some have more protection on the side than others. This one in particular has a fair bit. Mud terrain, strength. And having bigger blocks on the shoulders and chunky sidewalls gives it more protection from side-swiping, say, a sharp rock or a tree root. The most exposed and weak part of any tyre is the sidewall. It's an added layer of protection. Rock terrain, boulders, rocky outcrops, smooth rock, sharp shale rock, limestone, any type of rock. When people hear the words mud terrain, they often think about mud. all-wheel drive, going through mud, flicking it everywhere. A mud terrain tyre is designed to have bigger gaps between its bigger and deeper tread blocks. And this design is so it can self-clean while it's still clawing for more traction. I refrain from using the word digging. It's clawing for more traction. And because of this design, it tends to grip onto uneven terrain way better than any other tread pattern. Think of it like comparing grip strength. Translate that into the tyres. If you take the all-terrain tread blocks, they're not that far apart. They're pretty close together. With rocks, you can see how they'll more slide over it quite easy. When it comes to a mud terrain, on the other hand, the tread blocks are much bigger, but the gaps are also much bigger. You see the difference? It'll almost pinch the rock. This, on the other hand, it's going to struggle to pinch. It's going to slide more because the gaps are a lot closer together. So therefore, when you're driving on rocks, a mud terrain is much better. It's all to do with the depth and the gaps between the tread blocks. This was never meant to be part of the video. I used kettlebells to add resistance so I could scale the difference while dragging 2 cut pieces of tyre. I found consistent readings across 3 different days and 4 different terrains. It's definitely gripping more. It's not conclusive, but it backs up my opinions from my experience. I mean, there are significant spikes here and there, and that's when the mud terrain really finds a rock that's embedded in the ground. It's got those deeper fingers, so it's going to grip onto it more. Aside from driver error, it's difficult to deny that all terrains are not as grippy on the rocks. This is the environment that changed my mind. I spend a lot of time in the outback, especially in this stuff. Mud terrain tyres, I trust them way more on this stuff than all terrains, and highway terrains I wouldn't even bring out here. Extreme terrains, yeah, they're also good out here, but they're a bit softer and they suffer more from punctures on this stuff. So that is what I'd suggest if you're going to spend a long time on this stuff.
Oh, that's better.
Biggest con of the mud terrain tyre: road noise. That's what everyone just really hones in on and focuses on. Is it really that bad though?
Comes to road noise, mud tyres are not that loud.
Going from road tyres straight to mud tyres, it's a bit of a big jump. However, if you're already on all terrains that are a bit worn down, and then you jump to mud terrains, you won't notice that much difference. Not just noisy at high speed, it's also noisy at low speed. The mud terrains do get noisier as they wear down. Some brands are noisier than others. I find this one not too bad. Road noise in all terrains, it can vary a lot. The more aggressive the pattern is, the more potential there is for road noise. And I didn't say the more road noise there'll be, it's just the more potential of road noise. The real question is, how long does it take till you get used to it? Not very long. Straight away when you get in the vehicle, you will likely have some regrets, because it's like, wow, getting feedback from the steering wheel, I can hear all the knobbly bits on the tyres, and then it just becomes normal. I've been driving a different car for the last couple of days that had all terrains on it. When I jumped straight back into this, I could feel it all through the steering wheel and everything again, but 10 hours later, I'm already becoming desensitized to it. So you get used to it pretty quick. How much noise a tyre makes should not be the only consideration when choosing a tyre. Gravel roads, highway terrain, that's what most people use, right, on a gravel road. And on smooth gravel that most people think of, the mild stuff, yeah, great option. However, corrugations, harsh gravel for a long period of time, those highway terrains are not a good choice. They will fail eventually. And that's why these are not off-road tyres. All we did was a gravel road on the way in. We must have hit a rock or a stick or something, and it's just completely blown the tyre out. So which is the better option? All-terrain or mud terrain? Yes, most people again will assume that the all-terrain is the best choice. For the most part, they're correct. So what about mud terrains? Well, they're actually not a bad choice either for gravel. Believe it or not, this is the only terrain where a mud terrain is actually a quieter tyre than any other tyre. And the reason for that, it doesn't pick up all the little bits of sand and all the small rocks. It only picks up the big rocks, which gives it a different issue. If you're towing something, those rocks fly back at the trailer first. If they ricochet off the trailer, Guess what they're going to hit if you've got a wagon? Your back windows. But there's a solution to that. The solution. There we go. Stopping on gravel, believe it or not, MTs, any uneven or bigger rocks that's part of the road base, the mud terrain will grip onto that much better. That's where it'll have better stopping power than an all-terrain, because it can't do that to the same degree as what this can. And definitely much better than a highway terrain. All-terrains are easy to balance. However, mud terrains, once you've done one decent trip on them, or you've been through mud, or you've been working the vehicle quite hard with some four-wheel driving, bouncing around side to side, those kind of things, you will lose your wheel balance pretty much after that trip.
Not too bad until you get up to speed. At about 70 to 80 kilometers per hour, you'll start to get vibrations in your steering wheel. It's just having mud tyres. It's also a bit of the reason why they wear a little bit faster than other tyres.
Let's talk about mud. Woo! Getting a bit sideways there. It may seem obvious. Mud terrains. But here's the thing, a certain amount of speed is required to self-clean those tyres. We're looking at a speed of around 15 to 20 kilometers per hour and above. Let's translate that into climbing a big muddy hill. With mud terrain, you're able to claw, clean, and climb all at the same time. CCC. This hill requires CCC. And that's not going to happen with a highway terrain tyre or an all-terrain tyre. Not a chance, either one. In fact, they're dangerous to drive in muddy conditions. They will clog up straight away.
Carlo, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Game over.
Mud terrain is the best option for going uphill or on a flat ground. But what if you're going downhill and you want to go slow? If you do that, you can't eject the mud. You need that minimum speed of rotation to self-clean the tyres. Which means highway terrain and an all-terrain and a mud terrain suffer from the same thing going down a steep slope in mud. Claw, clean and climb. You can't do that going downhill. Price and value. Well, that depends on what you're using the tyres for. If you're not really needing a mud terrain, well then you're not really getting the value out of it because you're suffering all the cons, and one of those cons, they wear down faster than an all-terrain. So in that sense, it's not great value. However, if you need the mud terrain, then that's better value than the all-terrain. Speaking of value, the armrests. Now these are worth something. Jump online guys and get yourself one. Which should you go? In all honesty, if you spend enough time off-road, mud terrain. The noise of a mud tyre just comes with four-wheel driving.
What?
It's a bit like pinstriping your car. It just happens when you go four-wheel driving. The all-terrain, well that's for those who don't really do much off-roading. They'll spend most of the time on a gravel road or on the highway, or perhaps 1 or 2 trips a year. I wouldn't even go near highway terrains. That's the tyre to get you to the tyre shop so you can get one of these two on. If you want to know about tyre pressures, right there. And here's another helpful video. Thanks for watching. Mud terrain.